Glass is a movie that desperately wants to teach me something. Apparently, it's trying to tell me something about superheroes. It really wants me to dig deep and understand its message, but I, for the life of me, can't figure out what it's trying to tell me. The movie starts off decently. There's it kind of pushes you right in the middle of the action. There's a battle scene right up front. It kind of shines a light on what I thought was going to be a problem with this film to begin with, and that is Unbreakable was so brilliant in how subtle it was in delivering the message about superheroes living amongst us, because at least when I saw that movie, I didn't realize that David Dunn we were seeing an origin story, if you will, about a modern day superhero, a real life superhero. So I was concerned that to make these characters so overtly superhero would lose some of that mysterious quality, that, for want of a better word, innocence, and it would be just a straightforward kind of superhero type of thing, not so much metaphor, if you will. And they kind of do that at the beginning of the film, but it works pretty well. It's pretty action ridden, if you will. But then there's this weird, it's not even in the second act, it starts off in the first act. There's like a half hour of just constant dialogue and explanation. There's a scene where Sarah Paulson's character, who runs the equivalent of Arkham Asylum, it's like a psychiatric hospital. She talks and talks and talks endlessly with the three characters, Sam Jackson, James McAvoy, and Bruce Willis. And that scene goes on interminably. It got to the point where I was like, okay, listen, the subtlety of Unbreakable, which I enjoyed, you're not doing that here at all. So just forget it. Give me the action. Forget about trying to be subtle and give me the action. It's like that whole first and second act. There really wasn't a middle act in this movie. It served to show me that this was an hour-long film, maybe 45 minutes, that was stretched out to 2 hours and 9 minutes. It all seemed like exposition building up to what was the final scene, the third act, where we do have some sort of battle or a climactic scene with the three main characters. Problem is, that scene revealed M. Night Shyamalan's tremendous shortcomings in staging an action sequence worthy of a even quasi-superhero film. The staging was clumsy. The camera work throughout the movie drew so much attention to itself that it pulled me out of the movie a few times. But this final scene, I'm not going to give anything away here, but this final scene was so badly shot. Camera framing, the cutting, it reminded me of, there's a sequence that literally reminded me of the fight scene between in the Inhumans failed TV show, where Medusa is fighting some other female. I can't remember who it was, but it was so awkward and so, so uninspired that most of it was boring. I think they really should have titled this movie Split 2, because most of the story focused on James McAvoy's character, or characters. Glass and David Dunn, who goes by either the Overseer or the Green Guard in this film, they don't get a lot of screen time at all. I'll say some positive things about the movie. It sets a mood, it sets a tone, it's very suspenseful. There are elements of this movie that almost make it more like a horror film. But that's never been a problem or shortcoming of M. Night Shyamalan. He knows how to set a tone. I think in this film, the tone, while it would have worked in doses, but it permeates the film. It makes the film leaden, which made it seem slow, which made it seem boring. But there are some moments where it is effective, particularly in the psychiatric hospital. James McAvoy is amazing as multiple characters. I think he plays possibly 24, 25 characters. But at some point it was like, okay, enough. Let's get to the point. Let's let the beast come out, because we know that's where this is leading us to. And bravo James, but it's starting to wear thin a little bit. The screenplay does a good job of showing us how devious Glass, or Mr. Glass, actually is. I did like his character once he was allowed to do something. We don't really see Jackson given any lines until the end of that second act, or that nebulous first and second act. He basically spends the whole beginning of the movie, when we first see him, in a haze, in a drugged out haze where he doesn't speak at all. But once he's allowed to act, or do something, it kind of took off a little bit. There was a portion of the film where I was really intrigued by his character and his machinations, if you will. One thing that was unpleasant. I'm not going to say this made the movie, was a problem for the movie, but they also used a scene that was in the Blu-ray. Was it a Blu-ray or DVD? I can't remember. They had Blu-rays back in 2004. But there's a scene that was a deleted scene from the original Unbreakable film, where we see Mr. Glass as a child at a playground, not a playground, but a amusement park. It's one of the most gruesome scenes I've ever seen in cinema, and it was the worst scene that could have showed me, because I had a hard time watching that scene on the deleted scenes of the DVD back in 2004. So be prepared for that. It's not a pleasant scene to watch. Then the ending it's like Shyamalan felt like he had to do some sort of plot twist, which he's famous for, which I thought he had, gotten over. But it's some sort of nebulous and weird kind of incomprehensible plot twist involving, well, I'm not going to mention the character. I don't want to give anything possibly away. But it was so unnecessary. I did like how, even though we see these characters doing superhuman things, they still had some ties, some comic book mythos ties that I found interesting, that they tried to tie through psychology. For example, in Unbreakable, we see that David Dunn possibly has a weakness, like kryptonite, to water. They kind of explained that in this film, and I thought it was really good. They explained what motivated Mr. Glass to overall be antisocial or sociopathic. They probably explained in Split why Kevin, the multi-personality character, is who he is, or why he is the way he is. This movie has so much potential. With a little bit of tooling on the screenplay, this really could have been a good movie. As it is, it's turgid, it's slow, it's at points boring. I found myself fighting sleep a couple of times. There were a few moments, as I've mentioned, that were genuinely kind of thrilling, but it all led to what I think is like, this is what I sat here for 2 hours for. So I got to give this movie, I'm giving it 2 stars. I was thinking 2.5 stars. I'm giving it 2 stars because it should have been a lot better. And it just was too much dialogue, too much exposition, too much talking, too much trying to preach something to me that I'm already aware of about the mythological inspiration of superheroes. The mythologically based inspiration that superheroes can provide to us ordinary human beings. I know that already. I've been reading comic books since I was 10. So that's a message that in today's world, with superhero movies making billions of dollars, M. Night Shyamalan would have been better suited not to beat us over the head with that. And oddly enough, with the screenplay's beat us over the head approach to trying to enlighten us with how wonderful and how mythological and how great our iconic heroes are, it gave me the sense that it was saying that superheroes and comic books are to be feared. I'll just say that after the major events of the film play out, and it does have a low beat or downbeat ending, I'll just say that much. There's a scene where the psychologist Sarah Paulson goes into a comic book shop, and rather than feeling uplifted, which I thought the message of this movie was trying to beat me over the head with, it felt rather depressing and macabre. Also, in the comic book store, there are a couple of comic geeks that are debating back and forth vehemently. And it just added to a tone of, well, comic books are kind of scary. Is that what you want me to take from this? I'm hoping Shyamalan can bounce back from this. We'll see with the box office. We'll see how that goes. If it makes money, he's solid. That's all that really matters nowadays anyway. Having said all that, that's the martini. I'll see you next time.